Let's do it, baby.
All ready. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the reboot of Hoops and Six Chicks. I'm Jenny, and with my co-host, Libby.
Here we go. Jenny, back
Libs.
on the mics. We're ready to crush it. We're excited to get this up and running again. It's been, way too long. My gosh.
Too long.
Long overdue. So we're very eager to be back in full effect. And I thought we would ultimately kick off the show with just kind of, giving a bit of a personal introduction. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Just to kind of reintroduce ourselves for the first time in years.
Yeah, go for it. Girl.
Absolutely. So a little bit about my background. I worked for In Demand and Comcast as a master control sports technical analyst. So I broadcasted approximately 10,000 games and events per year for all the major sport packages, including, NBA League Pass, MLB Extra Innings, NHL Center Ice, and MLS Direct Kick. And I broadcasted, multi-million-dollar title bout pay-per-view events for UFC, WWE, and boxing. So it was ultimately kind of a dream opportunity. In a nutshell, I watch sports for a living. So I was a happy girl. Additionally, I work for Fox 31 and Nexstar Media Group Incorporated as a master control operator. And kind of my responsibilities consisted of monitoring and troubleshooting on-air live and recorded video and audio for multiple broadcast streams, 60 channels in total. And I was responsible for publishing several standard operating procedures for Fox and Fox Primetime, CBS This Morning, and WNOL CW Primetime. And kind of our special projects consists of really this show, which I am, profoundly proud of, even to this day, despite the fact that it's been lying dormant for quite some time.
It has, but that's right.
But we're the creator of this, we are clearly co-hosts of this show. We produce it and, operate it entirely ourselves. And we intend to really commit to a regular schedule and
yeah,
we're
going to get out some really good sports content between Libs and I. NBA aficionado, of course, NHL fanatic. We also love football, but Hoops and Six Chicks is mainly, it's our little project. It's our baby, but we're going to get it going, and I'm happy it's back.
And forewarning, I think we should ultimately prepare you for the fact that we more often than not are in utmost agreement with each other.
Yeah,
we're absolutely. We're very agreeable girls. So
very
sign
agreeable.
up for absolutelys to be heard left and right.
Left and right, absolutely. So my name is Jenny, and I attended the Colorado Media School, where I met Libby. We had our college radio station show called Hoops and Six Chicks. It actually ran for well over a year. Even after we graduated, we were still doing the podcast and putting that out. I also was a color commentator, the on-air broadcast for the Superior Rough Riders, a minor league hockey team in Superior, Colorado, for a whole season. And then the Rough Riders got sold, and we're no longer in Superior, so I didn't do that anymore. But it was a lot of fun. It was a great learning experience. I got to watch hockey every weekend, 3 nights a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It was pretty
Beautiful.
cool. Yeah. I liked it. It was really great. It was a great experience. This is a great experience. And we have a lot of fun. We aren't real standard, strict talking points and formats. We kind of go off the rails a little bit sometimes, but it's a really good podcast, and we have a lot of fun, and it's also very knowledgeable and just a different perspective.
Certainly. Absolutely. I think that's kind of the niche that we can offer, is the fact that we have a lot of great give and take. I really consider us to be a strong 1-2 punch, and we have our respective strengths and our kind of collective strengths as well. So this is ultimately a one-stop shop for not only, our, specialities being NBA and NHL, but we can discuss on collegiate sports as well. We are, fantasy football fanatics.
Yeah.
And we're also certainly going to introduce kind of a betting segment as well and act as, your go-to consultant to,
Get all your betting tips there with Hoops and Six Chicks.
Make a quick buck.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it, Livs. I know you are itching to get down into this NBA draft, so let's go, girl.
You are damn right, Jenny. Oh my goodness. Despite the fact that this is the, quote unquote off season, interestingly enough, because we should
It's November.
It's November. We should be approximately 6 weeks into the season. But as I'm sure the majority of the sports community is already aware, the tip of the 2020-21 season has been scheduled 3 days before Christmas. Christmas. I mean, I'm in need of no gifts whatsoever. This is a gift in and of itself.
100%, yeah.
And the fact that they ultimately have scheduled nearly a full slate, an 80-game slate. So we're in for a hell of a ride. With that being said, I want to ultimately kick off the NBA element of the show by recapping and the NBA draft.
Yeah.
And considering that it's immediately relevant, and I am one to watch start to finish obsessively, I can't in good conscience continue on by not posing the question of who was the biggest draft night winner. And I think collectively we can agree it's the New York Knicks. Obi Toppin was projected to be a top 5 pick. So therefore, going 8th was an absolute steal that no one, myself included, anticipated. So this really was the thrill of the night. And Toppin's athleticism and work ethic is utterly unmatched. He can transform the culture in New York, which is, respectively saying, dead, more or less.
Respectively
saying, exactly. So, Toppin can, ultimately take a franchise in utter flux, turmoil, and calamity and make it a true postseason contender. And he not only is willing to do the grunt work, but he is hungry for it because, he is a career underdog. He did not have a single D1 offer coming out of high school, and therefore he then attended Mount Zion Prep for a full year before then committing to Dayton. And he led the Flyers to number 3 in the final AP poll of the 2019-2020 season and won the Nesmith Men's Player of the Year award. So, it's really a feel-good story through and through, and not sure, if you caught his reaction when he was drafted by New York, but it was a tearjerker, even for me. And
there were a lot of tearjerkers in the reactions to the draft, I thought, but for sure.
Absolutely. Obi in particular, though.
Obi was great.
Deeply, deeply touching. Just a hell of a full circle moment for him.
Yeah, he's a hard worker. He's a go-to scorer. The Knicks got somebody that they can definitely work into their team and, be a good supporting role player.
Of course. No, he can offer immediate production. And, New York desperately coveted him, and New York is, in fact, his hometown. Transitioning on ultimately from Obi Toppin, James Wiseman, going second to Golden State is a brilliant pick. And although this was highly anticipated, it, enables the Golden State fan base to rest assured that they have at least somewhat of a promising season in Klay's absence. The 7-footer would have been consensus number 1 if he had played a full season at Memphis. Interestingly enough, he was so indisputably talented that despite the fact he only, played for 14 games, he still resulted in, going second overall.
Yeah, that's no small feat. He should definitely be proud of himself for that. He worked really hard, even though he had an abbreviated season.
Certainly, absolutely. And he fits Golden State's needs to perfection by immediately slotting as the Warriors' projected starting center in a Western Conference that is once again demanding traditional big man matchups in order to compete against, the notorious AD and Nikola Jokic. And this especially enthralls me, considering the fact that, me growing up in Detroit, I'm well accustomed to Detroit to heavy hitting, aggressive, man-on-man, inside paint, dominant basketball, which is tragically almost becoming obsolete and vintage and a thing of the past. So to see a big man go second overall, absolutely enthralls me, and it resurrects the league considering the direction that it was transitioning into. Courtesy really of Golden State and Houston and their micro ball lineups, which was enraging and proven in this year's postseason that micro ball is not sufficient for long-term sustainability.
No, you definitely need some big man basketball.
You do. Otherwise, it's not basketball, for God's sakes. It's not freaking basketball. And it's certainly not what I was raised to appreciate. And as a long-standing NBA enthusiast, I think collectively the fan base can agree it's difficult to stomach seeing the course the league is taking. But
it was, absolutely. This is exciting news for basketball to maybe get back to some of its roots, some of its entertainment value. And even just playing some good old-fashioned ball.
Amen to that. I couldn't agree with you more. And then transitioning on from James Wiseman, I think Boston was probably the third biggest winner on the night. I mean, they filled a critical need in drafting Vanderbilt Aaron Nesmith. Oh, big time. Who was the undisputed best shooter in the draft. And, well, I love this. A self-proclaimed absolute sniper. A collegiate player already, nicknaming himself. And it's kind of reminiscent of LeBron as much as I hate to, well...
Don't make that comparison. You don't like that guy.
I can't. But an absolute sniper is far more rational than calling himself the king. So Nesmith is not only a threatening outside shooter, but I mean his coveted size, length, and athleticism allow him to finish, brilliantly well at the rim. And that is precisely what really the Western Conference requires in order to contest against the Eastern Conference juggernauts in, the likes of Giannis Antetokounmpo and Bam Adebayo, and considering the fact that they are now integral threats in their respective conferences. So Boston additionally added crucial backcourt depth by drafting, guard Peyton Pritchard with the 26th overall pick. Despite him going so low, I think he can really offer immediate contribution, considering the fact that, he's the reigning Pac-12 Player of the Year and consensus All-American, and he really will offer tremendous bench relief for Kemba as Kemba transitions into his veteran years. So with that being said, these, in my, respectful opinion, are the biggest winners of the night, and I don't see how that could possibly be disputed.
It can't be disputed.
It can't land us.
It can't be disputed.
So I really see this as, despite this year's draft being considered, according to polls and analysts and experts, being the weakest in a decade, I see a lot of immediate promise and immediate contribution among these acquisitions. So this is very exciting. It is.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that every team, some teams definitely picked what they needed and others went for specific players. But the four that you just went over with Wiseman and Obi Toppin and the two for the Celtics. I think that it's going to be a very exciting, like you said, getting back to some big old-fashioned football. Basketball.
There we go.
Basketball. It's going to be. I think I'm really excited for this season. I think these are all good acquisitions.
I wholeheartedly agree.
And especially with some of the moves that have happened today.
Oh, some of the moves that have happened today. My goodness, the trade community rumor mill, and not only just rumor mill at this point, but confirmed trades. I mean, this is breaking the internet, the sports internet specifically, and it certainly is shattering much of my loyalty to a lot of these players, considering my investment in their franchise commitment and seeing them leave. It's painful. It absolutely is. We have names of the likes of Jordan Hayward that we're going to get into, Fred VanVleet, DJ Augustine, Jrue Holiday. Many of these trades will offer, tremendous bolstering support for, the franchises that they will ultimately be transitioning into. But in addition, it requires extensive adaptation time. You know what I mean? Gosh.
It always does.
Yeah, it always does.
It always does. There's something to be said about chemistry. People may say, oh, yes, these are athletes, these are professionals. It's all the same game. It's really not.
No.
It's really not.
Not whatsoever.
Each team has its own chemistry, has its own, everybody needs to learn how to work with each other, basically. I know that's a silly statement, but I think that it's really relevant, especially when it comes to sports teams.
Oh, certainly.
It's not just about, yes, this person knows how to play or this person knows how to play. You've got to learn how to play together.
No, of course. And I think there's a predominant fear base as well, meaning that despite the fact that they, for instance, Jrue Holiday, which I suppose we can, dive into first and foremost. Okay, so regarding Jrue, I myself, just to further prove and solidify my support and advocacy for Jrue, I bought his New Orleans City Edition jersey this season. I thought he arguably second, potentially only to Devin Booker, was the biggest 2020 All-Star snub. Jrue Holiday has an undisputed promising future. His development is frankly reminiscent of the likes of Monte Ellis and Steph Curry. Despite his game being entirely different in terms of his two-way contribution, he is much of a defensive threat as he is offensively. This acquisition for Milwaukee was absolutely integral in order to secure, Giannis long term and really entice him into committing to that Supermax 5-year contract, which, frankly, first and foremost, not to go off on, an entire tangent here, but But Giannis never had the intention of leaving. Okay, much like Tom Brady.
He was just sitting.
He was sitting, much like Tom Brady. Unbeknownst to the public, Brady turned down, record-shattering contract offers year in and year out due to his commitment to the New England franchise. The sole reason as to why he left is because he accomplished all he could in that respective franchise, and he, wanted to ultimately see if he could exceed and excel outside of, Belichick's brilliance. With that being said, Giannis intends to be a Buck for life. He has a vintage mentality, that of Kobe, that of MJ, that of
it's a loyalty, it's a tradition, it's following through, it's making sure that you've completed all the things that you need to complete at this place, and he hasn't.
Correct.
There's more for him to do.
That's why he refers to Kobe, Dirk, and Timmy as greatest inspiration. He has no intention of leaving. And you know what? That's really reflective of the brilliance and dedication of the Milwaukee franchise. The fact that they traded Eric Bledsoe, who was a critical backcourt contribution, he wasn't sufficient in order to act as the needed supporting cast for Giannis Antetokounmpo. So therefore, what do? They go out and pursue Jrue Holiday, who, mark my words, Jenny, mark my fucking words, he will make his All-Star debut this season.
I can't wait.
He will make his All-Star debut this season.
Are they having the All-Stars this weekend or this season? They having an All-Star game this season?
Oh my gosh!
I don't know. The NHL has canceled all of their All-Star games, so I'm looking up. The All-Star break is scheduled to take place March 5th through 10th, 2021. So NBA has not yet canceled their All-Star break.
I don't see why they couldn't resort to the bubble format for, All-Star weekend anyway.
I mean, it kind of is anyway.
Of course, they'll sell out the arena, but, it's really an experience for not only just fans, but, even people who just have the opportunity to experience entertainment. It's almost kind of concert-esque. Like, tickets come your way, you're going to be in attendance, regardless if you're a fan of the game or not.
It's in March, so we'll see if they're allowed to have fans by then.
Fingers fucking crossed. But
why else do you have the All-Stars games if not for fans?
No, exactly. But everything's up for debate at this point.
Is. But yeah, I totally agree with you. As far as right now, the NBA has not canceled their All-Star break, so that's good.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, well that's encouraging.
I didn't mean to hijack you there.
No. I appreciate that clarification, and ultimately, referring back to the Jrue Holiday acquisition, they in addition get a 2020 second round pick, and New Orleans in return gets, Steven Adams. We just discussed, the OKC fan base has to just be in, agonizing grief, seeing the dismantling of what was such a brilliantly promising roster. And for God's sakes, if they had remained intact, if KD hadn't so just heinously betrayed the organization that made him, KD, for God's sakes, they likely would have bested Golden State over the course of the past half decade, if in fact that original starting five remained intact. With that being said, Steven Adams will not be suiting up in a Thunder uniform.
Nope. Will not.
He's going to New Orleans, and you know what? It's a critical acquisition. Considering the fact that, AD is gone, and really they have no front court support. They really have very little depth. Zion's debut performance was questionable at best. According to polls, if in fact the opportunity presented itself to pursue Zion versus Luka won by 88%.
He's much more proven. I'm not at all surprised.
No, I'm not either. And frankly, Zion is playing with, such tentativity and a level of timidness that makes him unrecognizable to his Duke dominance that America desperately fell in love with.
Right.
It was arguably the most highly anticipated rookie debut.
Yes.
Of the modern era. It really, really was. So, this could be interesting though. Steven Adams offering veteranship, offering experience, offering, front court mentorship and support. This could result in transforming Zion's game.
Absolutely.
It really potentially could. Really potentially
Steven Adams,
could.
And he's got some big body play next to the center. Zion Williamson. I think that'll definitely maybe it'll add a little bit of confidence for Zion, a little bit of like knowing he has this support next to him on the court, in the paint, and he can, really come out and be who we thought he was going to be.
Of course. So you know what? So this really is, despite, OKC's woes and how they look like they will continue for the foreseeable future, especially in the absence of now CP3, although I am excited about, Phoenix acquiring him. But with that being said, New Orleans' future could potentially be promising, and I can see them making a run for a 7th, 8th clinch. Although as deep as the West is, with that added front court support, and frankly, they didn't take a critically costly loss in losing Jrue, because Eric Bledsoe is an integral supporting cast as well. Not only supporting cast, I mean, he's a worthy starter, and he potentially has, all-star pursuits as well. So, and him falling into this role as, their primary guard, we could see development unlike the league could have ever possibly anticipated to see from Eric Bledsoe.
Yeah.
So frankly, New Orleans basketball is encouraging.
Yeah, it just got very exciting. It just got very something to watch.
Exciting.
Put that on your list. It's something to watch.
It is something to watch, and they weren't anything to watch,
right.
even with the addition of Zion. Yeah. Exactly. So I don't think it would be really a sufficient trade segment if we didn't discuss arguably the biggest name. And that biggest name being, without question, the injury-plagued. Oh, poor Gordon Hayward. My gosh, how I sympathize for him deeply. He officially declined his $34.2 million player option with Boston earlier this week. And he's officially committed to a 4-year, $120 million deal with Charlotte. Okay, Charlotte, I am ecstatic for Charlotte basketball for the sole purpose of LaMelo Ball. I have been a through and through advocate for the Ball family, despite their blatant controversy and dramatics and theatrics. I disregard that. I disregard what transpires behind closed doors. What I prioritize is production.
Sure.
And although Lonzo has flailed in his capacity, he, additionally could soar with the new acquisitions in New Orleans. So we could see a transformed Lonzo. LaMelo, on the other hand, he is undisputed the most talented among the Ball brothers. He has international global experience, and Charlotte is, eagerly, desperately seeking really a replacement for Kemba.
Yeah.
And LaMelo, frankly, could offer greater size, greater depth, greater versatility, and he can offer defensive contribution as well. So therefore, Gordon playing alongside LaMelo, Gordon, first and foremost, being, a true vet with having exceptional experience, making, a deep run with Boston. I mean, this could, as cliche as it sounds, be a match made in heaven, Jenny.
You're not concerned about his scoring efficiency and some of his wild, crazy passes that he makes?
Believe me, I am.
Okay.
Oh, I am. But I think that's a reflection of, of excessive, perhaps not excessive, but necessary time that was taken off in order to fully recover. I mean, you got to consider like Cam Newton, for instance. He was given premature
clearance.
clear.
I know how much you love Cam Newton.
Love me some Cam. But he was given, premature clearance, and it only set him back for another season and a half. So that was severely costly. So I think it's wise that, Gordon Hayward is easing his way back into, full capacity play. But because Charlotte does not have the expectations that, an elite major market such as Boston does, we could see him, really have rejuvenated, re-energized confidence.
Yeah,
and
confidence, some sort of,
Absolutely. Security in his ability to perform at an elite level, an all-star level. And I truly believe he will seamlessly transition into this leadership role. And frankly, that backcourt is going to be something to watch. Tragically for Charlotte, they won't have sellout stadiums night in and night out. Gosh, which is just devastating. Can you imagine making your professional NBA debut in empty arena? Oh gosh, exactly.
It's unfortunate that it's a reality of their life right now, but honestly, on some level, I think it takes out a little bit of the pressure.
I think so.
And maybe that's what some of them need. LaMelo especially may need some of that to kind of get himself under, I want to say under control, but just build up his confidence, build up his role a little bit, and realize, all right, well now we're just playing ball.
I agree. Exactly. It's down to business. It's not a performance. It's not for theatrical purposes.
Yeah, sometimes it's such a production.
It is so much of a production. I mean, you can refer to fucking LeBron. I mean, for God's sakes. No one needs chalk in their face. And I can't resist. So Gordon Hayward is huge. And frankly, I can't, sufficiently, complete my discussion on Gordon without discussing ultimately the guaranteed money. I mean, whereas he is
guaranteed money.
Whereas he is anything but guaranteed, Jenny. He's
Right.
not even cleared for full contact at this point.
Right.
So, oh my gosh. I mean, we could have potentially another Klay situation on our hands, whereas the organization eats, 60 mil just in anticipation of potentially a thorough full capacity return. You're
Right.
betting on uncertainty, long-term uncertainty, and it's coming at the cost of a bleeding cap. So I'm really hopeful for Gordon's sake that he can, offer immediate contribution and further develop LaMelo Ball's future. So
Right. And I think it would also be good for him to be able to ease into things
I think so too.
as we've discussed.
As we've discussed.
As we've discussed.
As we have discussed.
All right. Speaking of Toronto Raptors basketball, another thing that's happening this season with Toronto Raptors is they're actually moving to Tampa Bay
Oh, yes.
for the season. They'll begin their season in Tampa Bay, Florida. They just say Tampa. I just keep saying Tampa Bay.
Oh, that's okay.
Tampa, Florida. As the Canadian government won't allow them to play in Toronto, but I think it's more about the. I don't think it's about allowing them. It's because there's a travel ban in Canada.
Are the borders still closed as far as I know?
Yeah, hockey is restructuring their whole divisions.
I don't even see how that's feasible. What percentage of the NHL exists in Canada? How many teams versus how many American teams?
There's 6 Canada teams.
Okay,
So they can have their own division. But it's really what it comes down to is if they're only going to play in their own division, they're not really going to get, the whole traveling. The NHL is still working it out, but we can come back to this later when we're talking about hockey, but they haven't solidified what they're going to do yet, but they definitely do need to mix up the divisions, especially if there is still a travel ban. The travel ban, of course, can be lifted, and then at that point there'll be inter-conference games.
Sure.
But I don't know. So anyway, the Toronto Raptors are moving to Tampa for at least the beginning of the season.
Which is shocking. I mean, talk about a radical, climate change for that matter.
100%.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, you're going from fucking
Freaking
freezing cold all the
Toronto.
time to tropic.
Well, they're moving countries, bottom line.
Yeah, they're moving countries.
I mean, that is the ultimate shock. But hey, I'm just embracing the fact that at the very least we have sports, regardless if we can be in attendance or not.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to have sports.
Yeah.
Like I said, this summer was actually pretty fantastic with being able to watch sports every single day. Multiple teams play every single day.
Yeah.
And then, between hockey and basketball every single night. I had sports on for 4 months straight.
I
It was
know. I mean,
fantastic.
we had 3 sports coinciding. I mean, you can't disregard baseball as well. I mean, we could still watch baseball sun up to sundown. Yeah, it was a thing of beauty. So despite the fact that, we weren't in attendance, it was a very atypical, bizarre format. We still got the game, frankly, at an elevated level.
Oh, it was so exciting. There was no travel fatigue.
No.
There was no, travel days. There was no extra days off. I mean, it could be very succinct, very like tournament style. Here we go. Let's get it done.
Strictly business.
I thought they all did a very great job.
I agree. I mean, Adam Silver is a bona fide genius in what he coordinated in record time. It'll come at the cost of a depleting cap for years to come. It doesn't matter, though. We had the season. And it was historical at that in terms of performance.
Yes, it was.
I mean, we can't disregard, the Donovan Mitchell and, Jamal Murray showdown. And that is precisely what it was.
It was amazing. And the Denver Nuggets going down in 2 series and coming back to win 4-3. That's historical.
Exceptional.
No team has ever done that.
Absolutely exceptional. And Denver being effectively, disregarded, series after series, round after round. And yet they really proved their worth. And that's why, essentially the Western Conference is now restructuring in order to contest Nikola Jokic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a thrilling time. It really is a thrilling time.
Yeah. So basically, Canada is not allowing... Is Toronto the only...
Canadian team?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's why. And I didn't realize that.
So, yeah, they perhaps are extending, maybe
They're
not
saying
even
they
special
can't, well, they
favor,
can't. So the Toronto Raptors proposed to the Canadian government how they could have teams safely visit them, and Canada said no.
Yeah, I'm not
and that's why
surprised.
they're moving. So that makes sense. Okay, I
frankly
didn't
am
realize
not
that they were the
surprised.
only Canadian NBA team.
Well, considering like the extensive rigidity of this goddamn cold, glorified cold, I'm not surprised. And borders are going to be closed for the foreseeable future. They really fucking. Why do you think? I mean, I couldn't even get to Hawaii. It's an American state, so this isn't entirely surprising. I don't want to look like an idiot, so we're definitely gonna have to vet our information. You know, in editing, definitely, because I want our statistics to be airtight. I want to be a credible source. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I don't want to just be too fucking, because it's easy to be deemed as just an airheaded pretty face who can read a teleprompter. That is not what we're fucking doing.
Right.
No way now. You know what I mean? Okay, so, continuing on with our painfully long NBA segment, although frankly, I mean, I could discuss NBA until the end of time. You know this. Even if they were on strike, I would dig up rumor mill information. So with that being said, the breaking headline that was confirmed yesterday morning, Klay's season-ending Achilles injury. And, after being sidelined the entire 2019-2020 season with a torn left ACL, Golden State Warriors will tragically, yet again, be without their all-star guard Klay Thompson for another season with his, season-ending Achilles injury that was confirmed directly from the team. And he sustained the injury after landing awkwardly during a pickup game
in Los Angeles. Yeah.
I know, in LA. I mean, this wasn't even a coordinated team workout, just a fucking pickup game, and it results in another sideline season. Oh, it's gut wrenching.
Is it his same leg?
It wasn't confirmed what foot it was on.
Sorry, I don't know why that's important to me.
No, but it is fascinating.
Because he's already weak in one leg.
No, exactly. So all that the public was ultimately offered was the fact that it was confirmed directly from the team that Achilles is in fact torn. The specifics as to why, as to what leg, that's yet to be disclosed. And I'm sure that will ultimately be revealed in upcoming days. But he is... expected to make a full recovery, and as encouraging as that is, this is still a gut-wrenching, devastating loss for under any circumstance, but specifically in Golden State's terms, considering that, they finished the 2019-2020 season with an abominable 15-50 record, finishing dead last in the Western Conference.
Well, they just didn't have anybody.
No one. Even with the midseason acquisition of, D'Angelo Russell,
just didn't matter.
It wasn't sufficient.
No.
He had no supporting cast. They were starting scrubs, no names, where the announcers couldn't even adequately pronounce these players' names.
And probably didn't know anything about them.
No, because they had no background. They had no statistical history.
Right.
I mean, this could not be a more radical change of events for not only Golden State, but fuck the Warriors fan base. I mean, it has such a wide-ranging and long-term rippling effect on the franchise. It really does. And it could force the Warriors to ultimately take yet another gap year. And really, that's not even a possibility. At this point, it's a guarantee. Because frankly, Steph transitioning into veteranship, if he doubles his workload, which knowing Steph's mentality, he absolutely will, just to be in contention to clinch, that could potentially hinder his future as well. This could very likely close the championship window for the foreseeable future, which for me personally, not that I'm, a devout Warriors fan, not even a Warriors fan whatsoever. Frankly, I associate them a lot with the demise of today's NBA standard style of play. That in and of itself has had a rippling effect in that, look at what Houston's doing. They've replicated Golden State's format, and it just wasn't conducive to sustainability, and they failed miserably. And frankly, so ultimately in the weeks leading up to the draft, the Warriors committed to James Wiseman, though Thompson's injury made the organization briefly consider exploring another direction. LaMelo Ball, for instance.
They would have had to.
And LaMelo Ball, for instance, he went the next pick to Charlotte. He was, in fact, available. And although he would have offered temporary relief in Klay's absence, I mean, they're more so desperately bleeding defensively, and they need that internal size, and they need a franchise player to build around. If, in fact, worse comes to worse, Klay's out, Steph could potentially then demand a trade. Draymond, God knows what, his contract terms look like. But in the absence of Klay and Steph, he's not going to remain in Golden State under no circumstance. So ultimately, Golden State, they reportedly had trade offers from both Chicago and Boston that could have netted them a rotation player, a lottery pick to use on possible Thompson replacements. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton was available, as was Devin Vassell, and yet, they still committed to Wiseman, which is reflective of them desperately needing a, franchise future player. So, however, after months of scouting and preparation, they really held firm in their commitment to him. And regardless of Thompson's diagnosis, Wiseman was absolutely the right pick, and it was a condonable pick. I think, all of, NBA consumers and the NBA as a whole can collectively agree with that decision.
Was there a Andrew Wiggins? Just went to the Warriors.
That is correct, yes. But frankly...
Talk to me about him.
So the story about Wiggs. He was widely considered to be really the undisputed, most seamless transition from college level play to NBA level play.
Okay.
And his story really, it really saddens me in that he has such undisputed, raw, natural, gifted ability, right? So therefore, players much like, the greats, Jordan and Kobe, they didn't. I mean, Jordan was cut from his freshman team, for God's sakes. So that resulted in them, having to really do the grunt work and prove themselves, prove their worth, prove their dominance. I mean, they were forced to endure, agonizingly excruciating hard work. Wiggins, on the other hand, never was.
Okay.
Never was. He was an undisputed dominant force to be reckoned with, really, from the get-go, from the jump. And I think that abused his ego, that abused his pride, resulting in lackluster performance, laziness, unwillingness to ultimately do the necessary hard work. And because of that, he has failed miserably. He has failed miserably despite the fact that, he was estimated to be a dominant juggernaut almost immediately. So this really further proves that hard work, goes the distance beyond natural ability.
Do you think that he can step his game up and bring anything to the Warriors, especially, now that Klay's out again?
I mean, he had the supporting cast of Karl Anthony Towns, for God's sakes. Karl Anthony Towns, he's an undisputed all-star. I mean, he's been a dominant force. I mean, he can go toe-to-toe with any of the great bigs in the league. DeMarcus Cousins, when he was at his prime, Andre Drummond, LaMarcus Aldridge, for instance, AD for that matter. So even with that brilliant internal, dominating force, Wiggs showed no glimmer of promise whatsoever. So I really don't foresee much success for him in Golden State. D'Lo, on the other hand, I was devastated to see him leave Brooklyn, but Golden State, out of desperation, needed backcourt depth. And D'Lo, very much so, is an all-star, a bench all-star, but an all-star regardless. And he's incapable of carrying the weight of an entire franchise, even with the, added support of Steph. A dominant backcourt isn't conducive to making a deep postseason run. You need that critical big man. And that's why.
As we stated at the beginning.
Precisely. And that's why they, held firm in their commitment to Wiseman, which I wholeheartedly condone and frankly respect. I really do. And despite the fact that, Wiseman does not play shooting guard, he will still offer tremendous defensive assistance, rebounding dominance, offensive productions as well, all areas that really require immediate improvement in Golden State. And of course, there's no replacing Klay Thompson. The Warriors may be forced to start considering a future without one of the Splash Brothers, which will undoubtedly be crushing terms to accept due to the revolutionary impact the Warriors ultimately have had on basketball as a whole, not only professionally speaking, but, at a lower level, collegiately, in high school, middle school, all the way on down. these players idolize, James Harden and Steph Curry.
Right.
And Damian Lillard too. They want to be those catch and shoot, sharp shooting threats. And they disregard two-way play. And two-way play is basketball. There is no dominance. There is no team-wide effort when you blatantly disregard defensive effort altogether. And that's precisely what Golden State does. And in Klay's absence, they have no defensive depth. Potentially, now they will with the acquisition of Wiseman, but he's unproven. I mean, for God's sakes, he's yet to even debut.
Right.
So their future is tragically bleak at best. There's no graceful, gentle way to say that. But I think Warriors fan base should ultimately prepare themselves for a future that they've experienced for the past several decades. These past 5 years of dominance have really come to an effective close. And that's where we're at. And it's devastating because they were looking down the barrel of utmost resurrection.
Right.
And that no longer is the case.
It's no longer the case.
It's no longer the case. Now, what I'm thinking, because I want the next episode to kind of be you focused. I know, NHL is struggling in terms
it's just
of,
there's just not a lot going on right now. They're still in talks about trying to figure out how to deal with the season. And all of the rumors about, reordering the divisions is just talk. Like, nothing's really been said yet. I mean, the players, there's going to be, there's money involved. Mm-hmm. So. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm interested in learning. I want to be educated on this front because, NHL is not my fucking strong suit. And full transparency, I don't love it. Like you, of course, do.
How?
Like
how?
Oh my gosh, you don't want to get me on this tangent. I can give you a laundry list of reasons. Believe me, I grew up in Detroit. I should have an appreciation for the game.
You should.
I should. And you know what? Frankly, you could inspire me into having a greater appreciation for the game. I want to be educated. I want to learn from you.
What don't you like about it? What's your number one on the laundry list?
Okay.
Number one.
First and foremost, I characterize it as being the ultimate condoned barbaric sport, meaning that why is it that hockey is the only exception to every other rule that applies in every other major sport? Brutalization is not only condonable, it's encouraged. And
not as much as it was.
Okay, Tom Wilson, that still is jarring for me. After what he did to the fucking rookie.
He's a fucking shithead.
He nearly gave him, brain damage.
He's a shithead.
He was nearly in a fucking comatose state. Yeah. A fucking rookie.
I know. I'm not saying that I like that part of it. I don't like that part of it at all. I understand why it's part of the game, but I also don't agree with it. I think Wilson's a piece of shit.
You do? Okay. Because many people were celebrating that. You realize this. A lot of the NHL community was celebrating that.
A lot of the goons were celebrating that.
A lot of the fucking goons were celebrating
not actual hockey fans.
Okay.
A lot of the disgusting, drunk, fucking 30-year-old hillbillies.
They're for the brawls, not for the nature of the game.
Yeah, the fucking glass bangers. Yeah, they were. Because glass bangers are ignorant fools. They have no idea. They're not fans.
Yeah, no, they're not. They're there for the brutalization.
That's it.
Yeah, you're right. And see, that's something.
But that's not hockey.
I mean, I broadcasted 2 full seasons of NHL center ice hockey. I've watched hundreds of hours, and it's really difficult. Even my department predominantly consisted of almost exclusive hockey fans, and the only reaction they would have in a game is when a brawl broke out. Hey, a brawl on monitor
then they're
1.
Not really hockey fans,
and they fucking swarmed the channel. That was it. And if, in fact, a brawl was not transpiring, they were silent. Fucking crickets.
But those aren't hockey fans.
You know what? And you might be right. And this is why I need to learn from you. And I need to hear this from you because I'm so firm in this belief.
I don't celebrate that part of hockey. I celebrate the skill that it takes to... the skill, the coordination, the balance, just the fucking mental concentration you have to have. You're screaming down the ice 30 miles an hour with a tiny little puck on your fucking stick, knives on your feet, and you got some asshole smashing you from the side, but yet you still can make a goal. Yeah. That's beauty. And it's sport, and it's athleticism, and it's amazing. No, I don't like the hard hits. I don't like the hard hits that are dirty hard hits. You'll have to remember, they're also wearing 40 pounds of padding.
Sure. So there's a distinction, sure, but when you're violently smashing someone's face into the fucking ice,
your only goal,
in brain damage,
you're from a different era.
Okay, and this is true. And I'm like, and, you know, perhaps, like, you know, that can be, like, maybe not that particular incident, but, you know, brawls can be justified to an extent. It's the nature of the sport. It's the nature of the sport. And that, I could potentially get past. But what I struggle with is how they're shown, you know, a blatant exception to every rule that applies in every other major sport. Like, and the penalties they're subjected to are so insignificant. It's as if they did no wrong. They suffer no repercussions for that behavior, which is outrageously barbaric.
Getting better. The NHL is getting better about suspending guys for multiple games, even seasons. The fines.
Really? Are they, though? Because you look at, like, Cano. I mean, 162 game suspension. I understand he violated the PED rule twice.
True.
But 162 games. I mean, he's forfeiting $60 million.
And the PEDs isn't really hurting anybody but yourself, so who fucking cares?
Well, that's just it. I mean, you got to consider, like, 90s baseball and how those records today, of course, they have an asterisk associated to all of them. They will never be broken. Ever.
Right.
Ever. It was the home run derby night in and night out. Frankly, I wish there was an Olympics where, you know, PEDs were allowed just to really push
and honestly, if they want to do that, then let them do that. Like, who fucking cares?
Well, because, you know,
I get it. The sportsmanship of the game is they're not using their natural abilities,
and that's just it. So it's frankly a false performance. It's a false performance.
It is, and I agree to an extent, but I also don't think that the suspension should be as great. Like, if we're comparing what happens in hockey to this suspension, obviously the hockey is way more damaging because there's been plenty of guys that have almost been fucking killed on the ice.
I know,
because of shit like that.
Exactly.
I mean, come on, Bertuzzi on Steve Moore, that was fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
And there is not one Denver hockey fan that will ever, ever, ever condone Todd Bertuzzi or Bradshaw, the coach of the fucking Canucks at the time.
It's just, you know what, it's difficult for me to get past that because I do understand. Like, you got to consider, like, me being a specific enthusiast of, you know, the NBA. Of course, I embrace all sports, collegiate and professional. But, I mean, basketball is truly a sport of utmost beauty. I mean, I can see the play unfolding before they even cross midcourt. Additionally, where I struggle in hockey is I associate much of the game to luck. I see I see unrelenting turnovers. I don't see designated, coordinated, implemented plays. I don't even see plays being called. And this could be ignorance from, you know, a consumer standpoint, and you can educate me on this front. But that's also where I really struggle, because, like, a turnover in basketball, that counts against them statistically. That will be listed on their box score. Against. But it's constant. It's nearly every fucking possession.
But there's a difference between a turnover, an actual turnover, and losing the puck. There's a difference.
Okay. And see, this is why, I mean, I wish we could be in attendance. I would love, because I attended a couple of games this game. I saw you. And, you know, I sat next to some fucking goon who was there for the purpose of brawls. I want to be educated, you know?
I mean, you need to go to a game with a hockey fan.
And I would love to be in attendance with you. I would. And I knew we were trying to fucking coordinate that. We were trying to coordinate that days before the moment, remember?
Yeah.
So that's my problem. That's where I stand.
I understand.
And I'm sure you have reservations about basketball too.
No, I mean, I don't like the flopping. I think the flopping is fucking shit. It bugs me immensely. But I mean, when a hockey, I totally understand, because I didn't used to like hockey, and it was because I was like, what the fuck do I want to watch a boxing match on ice? That's bullshit.
Yeah.
But I started going to the game and I started learning the rules, and I still don't like the fighting. I understand why it's necessary. On some level. Sure. Those horrible, horrendous hits are disgusting. Every time I'm just, it's saddening.
No, it's gut-wrenching. It really is. But you know what? Their own respective community celebrates it.
Yes, and I understand.
Fucked, Jenny. There's no other way to perceive it beyond it being utterly fucked. How can you celebrate practically putting a defenseless rookie in a coma? You know, that's where I struggle. But I would like to be educated further on the nature of the game. The nature of the game beyond the brawls, you know, beyond the meager penalties.
Beautiful. It is. There is so much beauty in hockey and athleticism. I mean, to think that, I mean, even if you just watch Nathan McKinnon do fucking anything, every time he has the puck, everybody's like, God damn it, why are we letting that guy get the puck? Because he is fast and he's smart. He is hockey smart.
And you know what? This is also, as I said, I have a laundry list of reservations regarding hockey. I consider hockey, I characterize hockey as having the lowest IQ of any major athlete. That is my deepest appreciation for baseball.
Okay.
I mean, consider, the pitcher to batter matchup, the infinite variables and, just variances of the fucking game. We as a consumer, even as knowledgeable as we might be of the game, we don't have the fucking slightest clue of what that exact
mentality that has to happen.
That one-on-one battle looks like. And I think the game of baseball is just ingenious. And I think, the average person doesn't appreciate it to the degree that you and I do. And that's also a difficulty for mine regarding hockey. I don't associate it as being a high IQ sport. I don't. Okay. But this is
I got a goal now. I got a goal.
And this is precisely where you can ultimately aid in educating me and and transforming my my long-standing opinions and reservations towards the game, because I think this would really aid in me being a broadcaster and me like educating you on basketball as well. And I'd love to you and I should attend a game together. And if you have any inquiries regarding intentional fouling,
I have so many questions about basketball,
and I have so many questions about hockey. Exactly. And
I hope that I can help.
And this is why I think like football, we're pretty much we're each other's equals on that front. So I think we need to embrace that, and then also embrace our respective niches. So, and that's why I think this gives us such an edge. It really does.
I agree.